के दिए गए संवैधानिक पीठ के सर्वसम्मति के 2 फैसलों को इस सरकार ने सदन के भीतर बिल लाकर बदल दिया। पहला था दिल्ली सेवा बिल, जो 8 दिन के भीतर ऑर्डिनेंस लाकर और फिर सदन के भीतर बिल लाकर बदला गया, और एक ये बिल जो 2 मार्च 2023 के सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले को पलटता है और उस फैसले को पूरी तरीके से रिवर्स करने का काम करता है। मैं आपको यह बताना चाहूंगा कि यह सरकार इस बिल के माध्यम से एक प्रकार से सुप्रीम कोर्ट को खुली चुनौती दे रही है कि आपको जो फैसला देना है दीजिए, अगर हमें पसंद नहीं आएगा हम बिल लाकर उस फैसले को पलट देंगे। दूसरा इंसल्ट या अपमान इस बिल के माध्यम से चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया का है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट का फैसला कहता है कि चयन समिति के 3 सदस्य होंगे, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, माननीय नेता प्रतिपक्ष यानी कि लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन, और थर्ड चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया। इन 3 मेंबरी समिति में से इस बिल के माध्यम से सरकार ने चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया को हटा दिया और एक कैबिनेट मंत्री को उनकी जगह बिठा दिया। चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया से इतना परहेज कि साफ तौर पे उन्हें इस समिति से हटाने के लिए इस बिल को लाया गया। मैं सरकार को याद कराना चाहूंगा कि समय समय पर इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स के लिए इस देश में कमेटियां बनी और अधिकांश कमेटियों ने यह फैसला दिया, ये रिपोर्ट दी, ये सजेशन दिया कि समिति के भीतर चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया यानी कि इस देश की न्यायमूर्ति को जरूर होना चाहिए, चाहे वो तारकुंडे कमेटी हो, दिनेश गोस्वामी कमेटी हो, वोरा कमेटी हो, इंद्रजीत गुप्ता कमेटी हो, जीवन रेड्डी कमेटी हो, या फिर इसी सरकार की लॉ कमीशन की रिपोर्ट हो। तीसरी इंसल्ट इस बिल के माध्यम से भाजपा सरकार एक ऐसे शख्स की कर रही है जो व्यक्ति भाजपा का संस्थापक थे, जो व्यक्ति आज भी भाजपा के मार्गदर्शक हैं, जो व्यक्ति भाजपा के भीष्म पितामह के नाम से जाने जाते हैं, वो व्यक्ति जो भारत देश के पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री रहे यानी कि लाल कृष्ण आडवाणी जी, पूर्व उप प्रधानमंत्री रहे। मैं 2 जून 2012 को, और मैं राज्यसभा के पटल पे इस लेटर को रखूंगा, 2 जून 2012 को माननीय लाल कृष्ण आडवाणी जी ने उस समय के प्रधानमंत्री डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को पत्र लिखकर कहा कि चुनाव आयोग की जो भूमिका है चुनावों में बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण है, उसकी नियुक्ति पर एक बहुत बड़ा संदेह, प्रश्न चिन्ह लगा हुआ है और उसकी नियुक्ति सरकार के हाथ में नहीं होनी चाहिए। और वो लिखते हैं, द प्रेजेंट सिस्टम whereby members to the election commission are appointed solely on the advice of the prime minister does not evoke confidence in the people. Keeping these important decisions as the exclusive preserve of the ruling party renders the entire selection process vulnerable and open to manipulation and partisanship. और वो कहते हैं कि समिति 5 सदस्यों की हो जो सीईसी की चयन करे, उनकी नियुक्ति करे, जिसमें प्रधानमंत्री हो, जिसमें लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन लोकसभा हो, जिसमें लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन राज्यसभा हो, जिसमें चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया हो और कानून मंत्री हो, यानी कि 2 सदस्य सरकार के, 2 सदस्य ऑपोजिशन के और 1 न्यायपालिका के। ये समिति बड़ी अच्छी है, यानी कि आडवाणी जी भी चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर की स्वतंत्रता के लिए, चुनाव आयोग की स्वतंत्रता के लिए लड़ते रहे, लेकिन इन लोगों ने आडवाणी जी को भी उनके हक की, उनके अधिकार की बात नहीं दी। आज मैं सदन में दूसरी बार लाल कृष्ण आडवाणी जी के हक की, उनके अधिकार की बात मांगने के लिए खड़ा हुआ हूं। पहला जब उन्होंने दिल्ली सेवा बिल पर कहा था दिल्ली को पूर्ण राज्य का दर्जा दिया जाए, और आज जब उन्होंने कहा कि चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर की नियुक्ति स्वतंत्रता से हो, निष्पक्ष तरीके से हो। आगे मैं 3 महत्वपूर्ण कारण बताना चाहूंगा मैडम, जिसके चलते ये बिल को आज मैं और मुझे लगता है समस्त विपक्ष अपोज करता है। पहला कि ये बिल पूरी तरीके से इलीगल है, गैर कानूनी है, और वो इसलिए है क्योंकि यू कैन नॉट रिवर्स अ सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट विदाउट चेंजिंग द वेरी बेसिस ऑफ इट। यानी कि अगर आपको सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले को पलटना है तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट जिस फैसले को देते हुए जिस आधार को रेफर करता है, आपको उस आधार को बदलना पड़ेगा। आप सीधा फैसला नहीं पलट सकते। लेकिन इन लोगों ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले की मूलभूत भावना को इस बिल के माध्यम से चोट पहुंचाने की कोशिश करी है और निष्पक्षता को चुनाव आयोग की भंग किया है। दूसरी कारण क्यों ये बिल गैर कानूनी, इसलिए क्योंकि ये बिल बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर, मेरा माइक चला गया, क्योंकि ये बिल बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ है। बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शंस, बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है निष्पक्ष चुनाव और डेमोक्रेसी। अगर बायस्ड इलेक्शन कमीशन होगा तो चुनाव भी बायस्ड होगा। अगर गैर निष्पक्ष तरीके से चुनाव आयोग चुना जाएगा तो हिंदुस्तान में चुनाव भी गैर निष्पक्ष तरीके से होंगे। इसीलिए यह बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को भी पूरी तरीके से वायलेट करता है। मैं आगे बताना चाहूंगा कि दूसरा महत्वपूर्ण कारण क्यों यह बिल एक प्रकार से सरकार के हाथ में चुनाव आयोग का पूरा नियंत्रण दे देता है। व्हाई इज द सिलेक्शन कमिटी बायस्ड इन द फेवर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट? सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा 3 मेंबरी समिति होगी जो तय करेगी कि चुनाव आयोग में कौन कौन बैठेगा। प्रधानमंत्री, लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन और चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया। इसमें से चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया को निकाल बाहर कर एक कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर को इसमें डालकर पूरा नियंत्रण सिलेक्शन समिति का इन लोगों ने बिगाड़ दिया, जिसके चलते आज इस समिति में सरकार के पास 2 वोट हैं। 2:1 से सारे फैसले मेजॉरिटी से सरकार ले सकती है। इसमें सर्वसम्मति से फैसला नहीं लेना, यूनानिमिटी से फैसला नहीं लेना। सरकार चाहे तो 2:1 से कोई भी फैसला ले सकती है, यानी कि सारा नियंत्रण कौन मुख्य चुनाव आयुक्त होंगे, कौन चुनाव आयुक्त होंगे, ये सरकार के हाथ में आ जाता है। और ये एक ऐसी व्यवस्था बनाता है कि एक पार्टी मैन, एक यस मैन चुनाव आयुक्त बन सकता है। वो दिन भी दूर नहीं कि चाहे भाजपा अगर कल तो संबित पात्रा को चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बना सकती है मैडम, और 2:1 के रेशियो से संबित पात्रा देश के चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बन सकते हैं। आप सोचिए कि ये कितना खतरनाक होगा अगर वो चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बन गए। मैं आगे चलता हूं। पैरा 9 इस सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट का कहता है, द एग्जीक्यूटिव अलोन बीइंग इन्वॉल्व्ड इन द अपॉइंटमेंट एंश्योर्स दैट द कमीशन becomes and remains a partisan body and the branch of the executive. The independence of the commission is intimately interlinked with the process of appointment. यानी कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ये कहता है कि चयन का जो पूरा प्रोसेस है वो पूरी तरीके से इलेक्शंस कैसे होंगे, फ्री होंगे कि फेयर होंगे, वो तय करता है। मैं आगे चलता हूं, 14 मिनट है मैडम, अभी तो 6 मिनट बाकी हैं। सुप्रीम कोर्ट आगे अपने पैरा 186 में हाईलाइट करते हुए कहता है, अ पर्सन who is weak kneed before the powers that be cannot be appointed as the election commissioner. A person who is in a state of obligation or feels indebted to the person who has appointed him fails the nation and can have no place in the conduct of elections, forming the very foundation of our democracy. An independent person cannot be biased. It is important that the appointment must be overshadowed even by a perception that a yes man will decide the fate of the democracy and all its promises. यानी कि केवल निष्पक्ष चयन ही होना जरूरी नहीं है, निष्पक्ष चयन जनता को नजर आना भी जरूरी है। इट मस्ट नॉट ओनली बी डन, इट मस्ट बी सीन टू बी डन। ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट बात कहता है। मैं आगे चलता हूं। तीसरा कारण कि क्यों हम इस बिल को अपोज कर रहे हैं वो है कि ये जो प्रपोज्ड सिलेक्शन कमिटी है इसमें कोई चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस नहीं है। चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि सारे फैसले तो सरकार के पक्ष में होंगे, 2 मंत्री सरकार के उसमें बैठे हैं, एलओपी को मात्र फॉर्मेलिटी के लिए इसमें बिठाया गया है, तो एक प्रकार का फिक्स्ड मैच इसमें नजर आता है। अब आप ही सोचिए, 3 मेंबरी समिति है जिसमें माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी हैं, मान लेते हैं हमारे सदन के लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन मल्लिकार्जुन खड़गे जी उसके सदस्य हैं, और 3rd मेंबर अर्जुन मेघवाल जी कानून मंत्री यहां बैठे हैं वो हैं। अब इनकी बैठक चल रही है, इसमें माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं कि मैं रमेश नाम के शख्स को चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बनाना चाहता हूं। खड़गे साहब कहते हैं कि मैं रमेश को नहीं सुरेश को चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बनाना चाहता हूं। क्या अर्जुन मेघवाल जी जो इसी सरकार के कानून मंत्री हैं वो प्रधानमंत्री जी को ये कह सकते हैं कि नहीं 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 प्रधानमंत्री जी रमेश ठीक नहीं है, खड़गे साहब ने जिसको नॉमिनेट किया है सुरेश, मैं भी उसी के हक में वोट देता हूं, उसका चयन हो, वो चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बने? ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता। तो जो सरकार चाहेगी वही होगा। तो एक प्रकार से निष्पक्षता और स्वतंत्रता चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर की खत्म करने का काम ये करती है। हमने एक बचपन में एक मुहावरा सुना था, जिसकी लाठी उसकी भैंस। तो ये पूरी तरीके से इस बिल में सिद्ध होता है कि लाठी भी इनकी, तो फिर इस कानून के माध्यम से भैंस भी इनकी। मैं आपको एक और उदाहरण के माध्यम से समझाता हूं। मान लीजिए भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया का क्रिकेट मैच हो रहा है। उस क्रिकेट मैच में अंपायर कौन होगा वो एक 3 मेंबर की समिति तय करेगी जो मैच कराएगी। वो 3 मेंबर की समिति में एक ऑस्ट्रेलिया के कैप्टन पैट कमिंग्स होंगे, दूसरे ऑस्ट्रेलिया के प्रसिद्ध प्लेयर डेविड वार्नर होंगे, और 3rd भारत के कप्तान रोहित शर्मा होंगे। अब ये 3 मेंबरी समिति अगर किसी अंपायर को चुनेगी तो वो अंपायर तो हमेशा ही ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ होगा, क्योंकि 2-1 की बहुमत ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ है। तो क्या निष्पक्ष मैच हो सकता है? क्या इंडिया इंडिपेंडेंट मैच खेल सकती है? ऐसा ही कुछ इस चुनाव आयोग के गठन से, इस बिल के आने के बाद इस देश में होने जा रहा है। मैं आगे चलता हूं मैडम, मुझे बोलने दीजिए। इसका माध्यम, मैडम मुझे बोलने दीजिए, मुझे डिस्टर्ब ना करें। यह बिल 3 की टेस्ट पे फेल होता है, द टेस्ट ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस, द टेस्ट ऑफ न्यूट्रलिटी एंड द टेस्ट ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनैलिटी। ये हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल इंपेरेटिव है कि देश में चुनाव आयोग निष्पक्ष हो, ताकि चुनाव निष्पक्ष हो। अगर चुनाव आयोग निष्पक्ष नहीं होगा तो चुनाव निष्पक्ष नहीं होंगे और लोगों की आस्था इस लोकतंत्र से डगमगा जाएगी। मैं सरकार को कहना चाहता हूं, अगर सरकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट के इस फैसले को पलटना चाहती है, अगर सरकार चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया को इस समिति से हटाने के लिए इतनी बेकरार है तो मैं आज सुझाव लाया हूं कानून मंत्री जी, 3 सुझाव मेरे, इनमें से अगर आप कोई सुझाव स्वीकार कर लें तो मुझे लगता है सारा हाउस एक आवाज में आपके इस बिल का समर्थन करेगा। पहला सुझाव यह है, ये 3 ऑप्शन लाया हूं आपके लिए। पहला ऑप्शन यह है कि चुनाव आयोग का गठन, कौन चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर होगा और कौन इलेक्शन कमिश्नर्स होंगे, इसका गठन 2 मेंबरी समिति करे जिसमें 2 लोग हों, प्रधानमंत्री और लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन, ये विपक्ष के नेता। ये 2 मेंबर्स सर्वसम्मति से फैसला ले, यूनानिमिटी से, क्योंकि 2 लोगों में मेजॉरिटी तो हो नहीं सकती, तो 2 लोग सर्वसम्मति से फैसला ले, जो भी नाम तय करेंगे हम सब मान जाएंगे। ये ऑप्शन 1। ऑप्शन 2 मैं देना चाहूंगा सरकार को, जो लालकृष्ण आडवाणी जी ने दिया था। लालकृष्ण आडवाणी जी की बात मान लीजिए, मेरी मत मानिए, आपको आम आदमी पार्टी तो पसंद नहीं, पर अपने पेट्रियार्क फाउंडिंग फादर, आपके पितामह भीष्म लालकृष्ण आडवाणी जी का फॉर्मूला ले लीजिए। 5 मेंबरी समिति, प्रधानमंत्री, कानून मंत्री, लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन इन लोकसभा एंड राज्यसभा और चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया। ये 5 मेंबरी समिति एक निष्पक्ष चुनाव आयोग का चयन कर लेगी। और तीसरा ऑप्शन, अगर ये दोनों ऑप्शन आपको पसंद नहीं तो मैं आपको वो ऑप्शन बताना चाहूंगा जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में प्रोफेसर शिबन लाल सक्सेना ने दिया था। वो था कि जो भी नाम ये चयन समिति तय करे वो नाम सदन के भीतर लाए जाएं और 2/3 बहुमत लोकसभा और राज्यसभा से नाम पास हो जाए, वो आदमी चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर बन जाए। मैं सकारात्मक बहस कर रहा हूं, मैं ऑप्शन लाया हूं। ये इन 3 ऑप्शंस में से कोई भी ऑप्शन चुन लीजिए, सारे विपक्ष को मनाने की, एकजुट करने की जिम्मेदारी मेरी। मैं अंत में अपनी बात समाप्त करने से इतना बस कहना चाहूंगा मैडम कि ये बिल एक डे लाइट रॉबरी है हमारे देश की डेमोक्रेसी की, लोकतंत्र की। इस बिल के माध्यम से भाजपा डेमोक्रेसी को हाईजैक करना चाहती है। एंड आई ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द आम आदमी पार्टी oppose this bill, vehemently oppose this bill, because this bill will ensure that India, which is today known as the mother of democracy, will tomorrow unfortunately be known as for mockery of democracy. Mother of democracy से mockery of democracy तक का सफर आप इस बिल के माध्यम से तय करने जा रहे हैं। मैं हाथ जोड़कर आपसे विनती करूंगा, इस बिल को वापस लीजिए। लोगों की देश के लोकतंत्र में बहुत आस्था है, उस आस्था से खिलवाड़ करने का काम मत कीजिए। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairperson, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll start with the statement of objects and reasons which is mentioned in the bill, and that would probably settle a lot of the apprehensions that have been expressed by members on my right. The Honorable Supreme Court in writ petition number 104 of 2015, Anup Barnawal versus Union of India, declared that the appointment of CEC and EC shall be made by the President, so and so. Everyone has talked about it. But it has clarified in the judgment very clearly, I want to reiterate, and which the Honorable Minister also mentioned it while introducing the bill, that this particular composition of the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition and the Chief Justice of India shall continue until and unless a law is made by Parliament. And unfortunately, a law was not made in Parliament. If you know that I belong to an organization which is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. I used to belong to that organization, which had a law in place, duties and powers and conditions of service of the CAG of India, 1971. So I must congratulate the government that at least a law has been made, and that law is succinctly, and in law it has now been mentioned what will be the appointment, what will be the conditions of service, and what will be the salary of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners. That having said that, I will come to the second point, and that is relating. A lot of mention has been made about the independence. There are basically 4 issues: independence, interference, democracy being trampled upon. Basically, these 3 arguments were made. Ma'am, the point is, there is something called a doctrine, which is a doctrine of fallacy of causation. That if this happens, this will happen. If this happens, that will happen. And this false causality is the main issue out here. The bill talks about the appointments, conditions of service, as I mentioned. Whereas the transaction of business in the Election Commission has been mentioned at Section 16, Chapter 4, Transaction of Business of Election Commission. The transaction of business of an election commission is to conduct elections. The appointment process is a completely separate issue altogether. People who have, after being appointed only, they will conduct the election, and 17.1 says that the allocation of work will be done by majority. 17.2 says how the business decision will be done by majority. The other one was unanimity. Some people say that everything should be unanimous. If that is so, will the election commission not function if there is no unanimous decision during an election process? I think that has to be thought about. There is this situation which says that you completely jeopardize the system just because there is no unanimity among the 3 members or 4 members or 5 members. So I think it is absolutely an unacceptable proposition which has been put forward by some of my colleagues. I'll come to the point relating to, ma'am, the issue that the process outlined in the bill would inevitably lead to a loss of independence for the Election Commission is a fallacy. If such an assertion is held true, it would raise doubts about the efficacy of all election commissioners over the past 76 years, given the appointment of ECs has been within the purview of the executive. Despite this, they have consistently operated independently. Ma'am, the Election Commission has overseen completion of 17 national and 317 state elections since independence in 1947. Even under pressure from the executive branch and governing parties to bow to the demands fed by their desire for electoral success, the ECI has managed to strengthen its autonomy from year to year, election to election. Let us not forget 1977. 1977, the post-emergency elections in 1977, the opposition was apprehensive about the election process itself. Let me quote, Charan Singh wrote to Jai Prakash Narayan, both opposition stalwarts in January 1977. Mrs. Gandhi is thinking of staging an election. I call it staging because conditions for a real election, free and fair, will be lacking. Raghavan 2017, I can lay it on the table of the House. As it turned out, Congress was voted out of national office for the first time during these elections. And this was in 1977, when there was a single chief election commissioner. The elaborate process was not there. Now, when a process is being brought in now through a regular act of parliament, I think it is laudable, extremely praiseworthy to the government that such a particular process is being brought in. Now, I'll come to the second point, ma'am, relating to a judge being a part of the process. Now, if the judge was a part of the selection process, what would happen? If the CJI is in the committee to recommend appointments and raises questions of violation of, it raises basically questions of violation of the doctrine of separation of power, but I would like to refer to my colleague, Honorable Jawahar Sarkar said that what would happen, that in the appointment of the CAG, some particular CAG turned out to have a CBI case against him. Now, if this was the situation here, wouldn't the CJI be a party to a decision on which he may be probably required to take a decision in the judicial capacity? Would it not be a travesty of justice then? The CJI, being a part of the judiciary, cannot be a part of any selection process in this country. Now, let me also remind you that under the RTI Act, in which most of the states who are represented here have elected the chief information commissioners and information commissioners, what is the selection process? The selection process is the chief minister, another senior minister, and the leader of the opposition. All of them have done. All of us have done. Is it all which has been done is absolutely trash? Is it something which has been mired in subjectivity, in bias? Absolutely not. So I think the process is fine. An element or a person from the judiciary cannot be a part of the process. Now I'll come to, ma'am, a point relating to, which has been raised quite a bit, which is relating to the issue of conduct of elections. After 1989, no party in a position to win a majority, the ECI faced few structural constraints on its autonomy. I had mentioned, ma'am, that right from the beginning, all election commissioners, whether it was a single member or a three-member committee, have always upheld the process, upheld democracy by conducting free and fair elections. The motive has been to decrease money power, to increase transparency, to increase more number of people to access to the electronic voting machines, access to the booths. And in that process, the model code of conduct was brought out. Model code of conduct doesn't have any legislative backing. It is an unanimous decision between parties. And that is being enforced by the Election Commission. So the Election Commission, even after 1989 onwards, has been holding this model code of conduct as the beacon of democracy and has been holding the elections freely and fairly. Of course, there are always allegations and counter-allegations, but I can tell you that in the recent survey, in a countrywide survey conducted by the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, Delhi, in 1996, after the 11th general election, the EC stood as the institution that was trusted the most by people, followed by the judiciary, the state government, local self-government, so on and in that order. And this, despite not having the advantage or not having the backing of a law to determine their conditions of service and appointments and salaries. Yes. So 96, this was the opinion this was the opinion way back in 96. And when I said, since Manoj Jha said, 1977 is the one which was the watermark in Indian democracy. Democracy was under threat. Even during that time, the elections were held and Mrs. Indira Gandhi's government was thrown out. And that shows that the Election Commission's transaction of business, which is covered under section 16 and 17 in chapter 4, is not affected by the appointment process that is followed. And the appointment process that is followed is something on which I said the references to the RTI Act. And also, let me also inform the House that insofar as the appointment of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India is concerned, there is not even a search committee, not even a selection committee. And the Supreme Court in the this Constituent Assembly, Mr. Ambedkar held that the CAG is a functionary which is even more important than the judiciary. Still, it is being done without a selection committee system, and still it is performing to the best of its abilities for the service of the nation. Ma'am, there is one point which I wanted to make in addition, which is by way of suggestion. The point which is mentioned about Election Commission's conditions of service of election commissioners, transaction of business 91 is hereby repealed. Now, what happens to the existing commissioners and the existing Chief Election Commissioner who have been appointed by the previous Act? If this is repealed immediately, what happens to their conditions of service? I must thank the Honorable Minister that by way of amendment at number 37, I had a lot of things to say on that. Fortunately, this amendment has been brought, and that is a sense of the House that his status should have been kept at the level of the Supreme Court of India. This has been restored. Only one correction here, Honorable Minister. At page 2, it is written, it should be page 3, and 43 to 45, whatever has been mentioned, is well made. The other suggestion, the other query that I have is the election, this has already been mentioned, the removal of the election commissioners has not been made at par with the removal of the Chief Election Commissioner. In this amendment 2, at number 2, the Chief Election Commissioner shall not be removed from his office except in like manner and on the like grounds as a judge of the Supreme Court. The other election commissioners shall not be removed from office except on the recommendation of the Chief Election Commissioner. Does it mean that they would also follow the same procedure and also an additional recommendation from the Chief Election Commissioner? Or only the Chief Election Commissioner can remove? I think this clarity has to be brought into this particular amendment. The Supreme Court and the 1991 Act have already made it very clear that the election commissioners and the chief election commissioners should be put on the same footing, except that the chief election commissioner is first among the equals. Now, if that is so, I think the removal procedure should also be ensured. One more point, and this is a very significant point. This is relating to the independence. The independence of an organization like the Chief Election Commission is more linked to the way their conditions of service are governed. If the conditions of the service can be changed after their appointment, if their appointment tenure can be reduced, if their salaries can be reduced, if the removal procedure can be changed, then it is an affront to their independence, not at the appointment process. And therefore, in the appointment and conditions of service of the CAG also, it says that none of these can be altered to the detriment of the Election Commission after the appointment has been made. And since that has also been maintained in the bill, I have no hesitation in saying that there is no affront to the independence and interference in the election process that has been argued by many of my colleagues before me. The last point is relating to the election commission in the process. The election commission is not just a three-member body. It has already been stated eloquently by my colleague, Mr. Jawahar Sarkar. The point here, the election machinery in India, the largest democracy, which when the whole world observes and is absolutely, they are completely taken aback, surprised that such an election is held without any kind of a problem and transfer of power takes place. Now, this is happening by the support of the machinery right till the municipality level, right till the panchayat level. So if that happens, if that is the case, then how come only 3 members are, their independence is important? Do you mean to say the judges of our Lord Judiciary are not independent? Do you mean to say our district magistrates, who actually are the returning officers during the elections, are not independent? Only these 3 people should be independent? I think this entire argument is fallacious, is based on absolutely an argument which is non-est in law, I would say. I would therefore end by saying that I support the bill. I would request the Honorable Minister to bring in these clarifications. I would thank him again for bringing him on par with the Supreme Court judge, and also would request that their removal procedure should be made equal, in which case their independence would actually and truly be preserved. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's not your turn. Subhash Chandra Bose. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are some offensive expressions which have been used in the speech by some members. I didn't want to interject in between. Particularly, my reference is to...
Can you mention the rule, please?
Yeah, this is rule number 238, point number, sub-point 7, madam. Okay? So this is some use, 261. Let me take up 261 first. 261 first, offensive expressions, use of offensive expressions, I would like them to be expunged. Terms like Katputli was used for a constitutional body, Kabja on a Chunav Ayog. These are highly objectionable words, and also daylight robbery of democracy. We are here.
You're a bit late. You
Sorry?
should have objected before Mr. Patnaik started.
No,
because
sir,
he
no,
never used such words. Whoever
not
did
him,
before
Raghav,
him,
Mr.
you should have objected at that time.
No, member
Mr.
Raghav
Bose,
Chedda
please.
has used
Mr.
these
Bose,
expressions.
please.
I would like them to be
Mr. Bose, please. Mr. Bose, please.
No, why? Record.
Thank you, madam. Adhyaksha,
Yes.
ప్రధాన ఎన్నికల కమిషనర్ల నియామకానికి సంబంధించినటువంటి బిల్లుపై మాట్లాడే అవకాశం నాకు కల్పించినందుకు ముందుగా తమకు ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేస్తున్నానమ్మా.
Excuse me.
Respected madam,
He's speaking in Telugu.
on behalf of my party, YSR Congress Party, I raised to support this bill. మనది ప్రపంచంలోనే అతిపెద్ద ప్రజాస్వామిక దేశం. ఈ దేశంలో స్వేచ్ఛగా, న్యాయబద్ధంగా, నిష్పక్షపాతంగా ఎన్నికలు నిర్వహించే ప్రక్రియ మనం రాజ్యాంగం కల్పించినటువంటి ఈ వ్యవస్థలో ఒక అంతర్భాగం. ఈ రాజకీయ వ్యవస్థలో దేశంలో స్వేచ్ఛగా, న్యాయబద్ధంగా, నిష్పక్షపాతంగా ఎన్నికలు జరిపించడానికి మన రాజ్యాంగ నిర్మాతలో విజ్ఞతతో ఆలోచించి ఆ బాధ్యతను, అంటే ఆ కర్తవ్య నిర్వహణను ఎన్నికల సంఘం మీద, ఎన్నికల సంఘానికి అప్పగించారు. ఈ ఎన్నికల సంఘానికి చీఫ్ ఎలక్షన్ కమిషనర్, ఎన్నికల కమిషనర్లు నియమించే విధి విధానాలు రూపకల్పన చేసి ఈ ప్రక్రియకు సంబంధించి ఈ బిల్లుపై ఈరోజు మనం ఈ సభలో చర్చించుకుంటూ ఉన్నాం. ప్రధానమంత్రి అధ్యక్షతన లోక్సభలో ప్రతిపక్ష నేత, అంటే మెజారిటీ కలిగినటువంటి ప్రతిపక్ష నాయకులు మరియు ప్రధాన మంత్రి గారు నియమించే ఆయన మంత్రివర్గంలో సహచరులు ఒకరిని ఈ సెలక్షన్ కమిటీలో ఎన్నికల సంఘం నియమించడానికి చీఫ్ ఎలక్షన్ కమిషనర్, ఎన్నికల కమిషనర్లను రాష్ట్రపతికి సిఫార్సు చేసింది ఈ కమిటీ. సెలక్షన్ కమిటీ సిఫార్సుల మేరకు చీఫ్ ఎలక్షన్ కమిషనర్, ఎన్నికల కమిషనర్ నియమిస్తూ రాష్ట్రపతి ఉత్తర్వులు జారీ చేస్తారు. ఈ బిల్లు యొక్క లక్ష్యం చీఫ్ ఎలక్షన్ కమిషనర్ నియమించడానికి అర్హులను ఎంపిక చేయడానికి ఒక సెలక్షన్ కమిటీని కూడా, అంటే సెర్చ్ కమిటీని కూడా నియమించి వెసులుబాటుని బిల్లు కల్పిస్తూ ఉంది. ఈ ప్రజాస్వామ్య విలువలు కాపాడేందుకు వీలుగా ఎన్నికల ప్రక్రియను ప్రశాంతంగా, నిష్పక్షపాతంగా, న్యాయబద్ధంగా నిర్వహించడం ఎలక్షన్ కమిషన్ యొక్క బాధ్యత. రెస్పెక్టెడ్ మేడం, ఈ ఎన్నికల ప్రక్రియ ప్రజల్లో మరింత విశ్వాసాన్ని పెంపొందించి ప్రజలు ఈ ఎన్నికల వ్యవస్థను పరిరక్షించడం ఈ బిల్లు యొక్క ఉద్దేశాల్లో ఒక ప్రధానమైనటువంటి ఉద్దేశం. విత్ దీస్ అబ్జర్వేషన్స్ ఐ సపోర్ట్ దిస్ బిల్ మేడం.
That the quality of translation was not good.
Yes.
For instance, a search committee was being referred to as research committee. I just thought I should share that.
Even I realize that. You're right. Mr. Singh, Mr. A.D. Singh.
How much time do I have, ma'am? Huh?
नहीं, इन्होंने तो बहुत जल्दी खत्म कर दिया. इनका 12 मिनट का था.
हम शुरू करते हैं ना. Thank you, chairpersons, for giving me the opportunity to speak. But I am a little surprised by the election results which happened recently. Karnataka election was on 10th and the result was 13th. That is just after 3 days. Telangana on 30th November and result on 3rd December. Both the places, the ruling party lost. And wherever there was a gap of a month, 1 month, half month, then the results were different. So I am quite confused and perplexed by this. And so far as the independence of the Election Commission is concerned with vis-a-vis the executive, I know how in recent times, no, there are two things. At least I'm happy that a particular member complimented Congress for the 1977 free and fair elections. But we have seen recently that one of the election commissioner, the way he was hounded, and he had no option but to resign and go to Manila or somewhere. The Constituent Assembly members were concerned over the need to ensure the independence of the Commission. B.R. Ambedkar said, in order that election may be free in the real sense of the word, they shall be taken out of the hands of the government of the day and conducted by the independent body called the Election Commission. The need of an independent body to hold elections was emphasized in courts in a number of cases. In TN session versus UOI and others, it was observed that there can be no two options that free and fair elections to our legislative body alone would guarantee the growth of a healthy democracy in the country. The proposed bill jeopardizes this fundamental principle. And the proposal of this bill in today's political context, where issues are being raised and allegations revealed about the EC like never before, will be another nail in the coffin of the election authority, EC authority. And if the government is just reversing the decision of the Supreme Court in this matter after the judgment, that 5-judge bench, I don't want to go and repeat what other members have said. I think it is a very sad, it will be a very sad day in the history of the democracy of India. And so far as other colleagues are saying that, talking of emergency, today we have a undeclared emergency, which is worse than the one which was done by Madam Gandhi. And the way the selection committee is supposed to select the election commission, then there's no point we should have a 3-member committee. Let the Honorable Prime Minister select a person. And so far as my colleague from the Biju Janata Dal talked about the CAG and other organization, I can personally tell him how it works. So fortunately, I don't want to put things in the house because it will be not very good. So I vehemently oppose this bill. And when our forefathers have given a constitution which really balanced between the judiciary, legislature, and executive, and the way we are going, most of the institutions are being taken out of their powers, and whatever the ruling government says, they behave like this. So I vehemently oppose this bill.
Yes. Yes.
It's wonderful to see you on the chair.
It's a temporary arrangement.
Yes, but when I saw it on the television in my room, it's coming across very, very elegant, very distinguished.
Thank you.
And very privileged to see you, holding the chair today.
Thank you.
I just want to share with my good friend and esteemed colleague, Mr. Singh, that he made a sweeping comment that there's an emergency and it's worse than the emergency of that time. Coming from a person from Bihar, coming from the land of Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan, coming from the land which fought to maintain the unity and integrity of India, which is the repository of knowledge in this country, which stood up for high principles and values and fought against the emergency, so much so that thousands of political workers, for no fault of theirs, except that they opposed the then government, with no allegations of corruption, no allegations of misdemeanor or any other sort, were put behind bars indiscriminately across the country. Probably thousands from Bihar also. Many who today are in the JDU, are in the RJD and all the various offshoots, as there are so many, it's difficult to remember their names also. But all of those were a part of the struggle against the emergency, which was totally unconstitutional, unwarranted, and an attack on democracy in the country. To make such a comment, where today we are all with great freedom able to speak in this house, where today there's freedom of democracy, freedom of speech, the media is vibrant, the judiciary is protecting the interests of the people of India. There's complete freedom across the country. And the only people behind bars are criminals, are people in whose houses you find 353 crores and counting cash, illegals, stashed away money, where the only people behind bars are murderers and criminals and land mafia and sand mafia and liquor mafia and arms dealers and defense dealers.
A respected
In
leader
this day and age,
of the House.
to compare
Excuse me,
those
leader
days
of
of,
the House.
emergency with today is a blot on the very thinking of your party and the esteemed member of parliament.
Thank you, Leader of the House. But if you are talking about freedom, I think he used his freedom. आप बैठ जाइए. आपने let's.
Minute. I do.
उन्होंने कह दिया, आपने कह दिया. बैठ.
What I wish to convey, that we have seen enough of freedom yesterday. That was on display by the gesticulation, by the body language. What reference he made was metaphorically. Our metaphorical statement, if it is not made, what kind of democracy? I mean, you make new buildings, but there is no idea of democratic discourse. Democracy is never, ma'am. If JP was alive today, counterfactually speaking, he would have stitched an alliance of all progressive forces against their kind of politics. Thank you, ma'am.
Long list of freedom struggle leaders. There's not a single leader from Pandit Nehru to Sardar Patel to Gandhi who did not stay in my house in Patna and Muzaffarpur. So let them not teach me what democracy is. And let me tell you, one of the Russian big oligarchs had come to meet me a month back. While having dinner in my house, he said, Mr. Singh, you are more unsafe than me in Russia. So let not anybody teach me what democracy is. And I have already been to jail for not being a criminal. I should have also taken 10,000 crores from the bank and stayed in London. But I decided I will fight here. Whether you put me in jail again, I'm not bothered.
Mr. Britas.
There's a tragic paradox that is in full display. Ma'am, you were not here yesterday. Yesterday, the government was praising the Supreme Court for upholding the abrogation of 370. If at all an alien had come from some other planet, that person would have been completely taken aback the way in which the government is paying respects to the Supreme Court.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
sir.
If at all that alien continued for a day more, he would have been shocked to see that there is no relevance for the Supreme Court judgment, a 5-judge judgment. Sir, this is the classic somersault that is happening in the House. So the PM has been exhorting everybody, including my dear friend Agarwal ji, to make sure that the weddings are done in India. So there is a marriage of convenience that is happening here now. You want it to be a convenient proposition to make sure that the election commission is being controlled fully by government of India. Sir, it's an absolute fact that the intention of the government is to circumvent the Supreme Court verdict. What was the spirit and letter of the Supreme Court verdict? It was to make election commission independent, impartial, and neutral. But the bill which you have brought forward is contrary to the spirit of independence and fairness. Sir, I thought that the government would be willing and yielding for comprehensive electoral reforms. Sir, I'm afraid that we are not seeing the elephants that are roaming around in our drawing room.
John Britas.
Sir, the two pillars of the electoral practice now. One is money power and muscle power. I would have wished the government, if at all there was a comprehensive electoral reforms that was being brought forward, so that it would have cleansed the political arena. Sir, now with this bill that is being passed, I would say that let us close down Nirvadan Sadan, let an outhouse of the ministries being used for accommodating the election commission. Why do you want to waste time, sir, and energy, money? That is not required, sir. Sir, the Supreme Court had said that if at all there is no independence for the election commission, Mahesh Titmalaji, I invite your attention. The Supreme Court said, if at all there is no independence, it would lead to disastrous consequences. What does it mean? This bill is inviting disastrous consequences because you are making the election commission dependent, an appendix of the executive. Precisely that is your intention. Sir, even the search committee, the Honorable Ministry is going to head it. Even if the search committee decide on 5 people or 6 people, the selection committee can pick up somebody outside the search committee. They should have been a little more magnanimous towards the screening committee. They should at least respect the screening committee. Why is it that even the screening committee has been treated like that, without any courtesy? Sir, clause A2 says that selection committee may also consider any other person than those included in the panel by the search committee. So it defeats the purpose of the search committee, sir. Sir, electoral bonds, that is another contentious issue. It is with the Supreme Court. I don't want to comment about it.
Yes.
But the Home Minister had said that era of clean politics, and claims were made that it will lead to transparency and accountability in political funding while preventing future generation of black money. Sir, the same electoral bonds is opaque. That is a contention of the general public, according to me too. So, the scheme at very behest is opaque, undemocratic, and legitimizes corruption by the ruling dispensation. So, the former finance minister, I would quote him, Subhash Chandra Garg, he was there when the electoral bond was being brought in. He said that, why do business or companies donate bonds? Because they are hoping for some favor or seeking to protect their businesses. This is what the former finance secretary, who was instrumental, who was part of that team which brought the electoral bonds, said it. So what does it mean, sir? Sir, money power and muscle power, how to curb it? Sir, according to a study of CMS, the money spent in Lok Sabha election in 2019 saw a growth of 7 times from 1998 Lok Sabha polls. At that time, it was deemed to be 9,000 crore. Sir, 2019, the study says that at least 60,000 crore has been dumped for electioneering by the political parties, and major chunk would have been spent by Piyush Goyal's party. So now, 224, it is going to double, sir. So any legislation that is being brought forward should be to cleanse the political system, electoral system. Instead of that, you want to make it more opaque rather than cleansing the system, sir. Sir, we all know the story of Mr. Ashok Lavas. What was his fault, sir? Sir, everybody got 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes extra.
Conclude.
Yes, sir, I'm concluding, sir.
You have made significant points.
An honorable person, election commissioner, why was he ejected from his post, sir? So your election department, that is ED, was very active. There were raids conducted at his house, at his wife's house, son's house. He was ejected. And sir, it's a fact that even the big tech companies are being used to invade into the privacy, which has got cascading effect on the election, sir. Sir, one more thing, sir. What does it vitiate the electoral arena, sir? It's hate and hatred. So, in fact, though we go down in manufacturing, the manufacturing of fake news is very robust in this country, sir. So, these are the serious questions.
Ramnath,
Sir, I am rounding up,
Thakur.
sir. I am rounding up.
You made your point.
These
Sri
are the
Ramnath Thakur.
questions which
Sri, okay. You made good points. Sri Ramnath Thakur. Honorable members, I have got
इस बिल पर
input
बोलने का
from various
मौका आपने
members.
दिया।
One second. We will have voting at 6 o'clock. That is the sense of the House. 6. We have, and to have it at 6 o'clock, the Honorable Minister will give him the floor at 5:30. Please, Thakur sir.
सभापति महोदय, आपने इस बिल पर बोलने का मुझे मौका दिया। मैं आपके प्रति कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करता हूं। मैं इस बिल के विरोध में बोलने के लिए खड़ा हुआ हूं। कल जिस खुशी के साथ सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डिसीजन पर सत्ताधारी दल के लोग खुशी मना रहे थे, बोल रहे थे, आज क्या हो गया कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डिसीजन को, उसके आदेश को, उसके निर्देश के विरुद्ध में बोल रहे हैं। मुझको आश्चर्य हो रहा है। सत्ता पक्ष के प्रथम वक्ता ने कहा जनता दल यू आरजेडी के बारे में कि ये लोग पारिवारिक गठबंधन के हैं, परिवार के लोग चलाते हैं। मैं जनता दल यू के एक साधारण सदस्य होने के नाते मैं उन्हें बताना चाहता हूं कि नीतीश कुमार जी का कोई परिवार का कोई आदमी राजनीति में नहीं है। सभापति महोदय, आप सीनियर मेंबर हैं।
ठाकुर साहब,
में मैं नहीं बोला।
ठाकुर साहब, आप बहुत अनुभवी हैं। दो अनुभवी लोग जब बात करते हैं तो बस जवाब नहीं देते हैं।
सभापति महोदय, मैं बहुत चिंतित हूं। मेरा 58 वर्ष का राजनीतिक अनुभव है। मैं देखता हूं स्कूलों में हेडमास्टर की क्या स्थिति हो गई, वाइस चांसलर की क्या स्थिति हो गई। और वही चीज मैं आज देख रहा हूं कि एक भरोसा था पॉलिटिकल लोगों के बीच में, इलेक्शन कमीशन के बारे में आस्था था, उसके बारे में हम अब क्या सोच रहे हैं, हमारा राजनीतिक भविष्य क्या होगा। मैं किसी दलगत भावना के से नहीं बोल रहा हूं, मैं एक पॉलिटिकल आदमी के नाते मैं बोल रहा हूं कि इस पर आप सोचिए, विचारिए, शोध कीजिए और तब बिल लाने का कृपा कीजिए। पूर्व वक्ताओं ने कहा है कि जो अंबेडकर का निर्देश था, अंबेडकर की जो सोच थी, उनका जो सोच था, उन्होंने जो विचारों से प्रकाशित करने का काम किया था, उस पर हम क्यों नहीं विचार कर रहे हैं? उस पर हम विचार क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? शोध क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? उस पर हम अमल करके उस पर चलने का कोशिश क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्देश का हम पालन क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? ये हमारी सोच है और हमारा ये है। आपको याद होगा सभापति महोदय, एनटी रामाराव की सरकार गिर गई थी, राष्ट्रपति ने उनको, गवर्नर ने उनको हटा दिया था। विश्वास के साथ सभी एमएलओ के साथ आंध्र प्रदेश के जो मुख्यमंत्री थे वो आए थे दिल्ली में और राष्ट्रपति से मिले थे। एक आस्था था राष्ट्रपति हमको न्याय देंगे, विचार देंगे और उस पर चलने का काम हम करेंगे। एनटी रामाराय को न्याय मिला और उस पर उन्होंने काम करने का काम।
कंक्लूड।
सभापति महोदय, मैं आपके माध्यम से सरकार से निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि चयन समिति का जो हमने देखा है ये क्या है। कोई भी आदमी कहता है चयन समिति में हम घर के गार्जियन हैं और हम जो कहेंगे वही ना हमारे परिवार के सदस्य कहेंगे, और वो अगर एक आदमी विरोध में चले गए तो उसको समझाएंगे कि हम हेड हैं, हमारी बात मान लो, हमारी बात मान लो। एक कहानी करके आपसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं। 20 बरस पहले हम में और हमारी पत्नी में कुछ विचारों पर मतभेद हो गया और वो गुस्सा में कह दी कि मैं मैके चली जाऊंगी।
कब? 20 साल पहले?
20 साल पहले। वो मर गई 20 मार्च 20 को। मैं मैके चली जाऊंगी। तो परिवार हमको चलाना था। अब वो गुस्सा में कह दी कि हम मैके चली जाऊंगी, तो हमने कहा कि ठीक है तुम मैके चली जाओ और बाल बच्चों को मैं नलिहाल भेज देता हूं और मैं अब ससुराल चला जाता हूं। फिर वही स्थिति हो जाएगी, फिर वही स्थिति हो जाएगी। आप जो ये कर रहे हैं,
मान्यवर,
क्या कर रहे हैं?
प्रमोद तिवारी जी कह रहे हैं,
आप ये जो कर रहे हैं,
ठाकुर साहब,
क्या कर रहे हैं?
ठाकुर साहब,
इससे
ऑनरेबल मेंबर, प्रमोद तिवारी जी कह रहे हैं ये घर घर की कहानी है। मैं प्रमोद तिवारी जी से असहमत हूं। मेरे को आज तक ऐसी धमकी नहीं मिली है।
आप भगवान हैं, आप भगवान हैं, आप भगवान हैं कि आपको ऐसी परिस्थिति नहीं मिली। आप भगवान हैं। मैं आपसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि सरकार को आप कहें, सरकार सोचे। सरकार से मैं निवेदन कर रहा हूं कि आप इस बिल को वापस लीजिए, वापस ले लीजिए। कहे हमारे हम तो अभी शुरू किए हैं।
हो गया, 7 मिनट से हो गया।
दूसरी बात मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि चुनाव के संचालन में निष्पक्षता और अखंडता सुनिश्चित करने के लिए चुनाव आयोग की स्वतंत्रता महत्वपूर्ण है। चयन प्रक्रिया में एग्जीक्यूटिव का कोई भी कथित प्रभाव बिना पक्षपात के अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को निभाने की चुनाव आयोग की क्षमता के बारे में चिंताएं पैदा कर सकता है। ये है वर्डिक्ट, माने ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का। तो आपसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं सभापति महोदय जी, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बिल है और इसको आप ऐसे हल्के में नहीं लें।
थैंक यू सर।
हल्के में नहीं लें।
प्रोफेसर,
निवेदन करना चाहते हैं
प्रोफेसर राम गोपाल यादव,
सेलेक्ट कर।
प्रोफेसर राम गोपाल यादव।
ठाकुर साहब बैठ जाएं तब मैं बोलूं।
Sir, 5 minutes, but since time has been limited to 5:30, 4 minutes.
धन्यवाद श्रीमान। सर,
Jyaji knows the difficulty of this chair.
मैं केवल 2-3 बातें कहना चाहूँगा। एक तो ये कि संविधान निर्माताओं ने संविधान के माध्यम से संसद की सर्वोच्चता की बात की थी और कार्यपालिका, न्यायपालिका, इन सब को उनकी अपनी सीमाओं में रहने के लिए कहा था। न्यायपालिका उस स्थिति में जब कोई चैलेंज करे संसद से बनाए हुए कानून को तो जुडिशियल रिव्यू के अधिकार का प्रयोग करके उस पर अपना फैसला दे सकती है। लेकिन न्यायपालिका थर्ड चैम्बर का रूप नहीं ले सकती, जैसे कभी अमेरिका की संसद को कहा गया था। राष्ट्रपति ने कुछ बनाया, उन्होंने रद्द कर दिया, संसद ने कानून बनाया, तो झमेला वहाँ हुआ था। लेकिन ऐसी स्थिति हमारे यहाँ नहीं है। लेकिन अपनी बात पर आने से पहले मैं एक बात अवश्य कहना चाहूँगा कि बहुत ज़्यादा न्यायपालिका पर रिलाई न करें। अभी सिसोदिया के जमानत के वक्त सबने पढ़ा होगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्या कहा था।
माननीय राम गोपाल जी, राम गोपाल,
अब मुझे एक मिनट बोल
नहीं, एक सेकंड। न्यायपालिका के
न्यायिक
आचरण पर
न्यायपालिका के खिलाफ नहीं न्यायपालिका संसद के खिलाफ जा सकती, तो संसद के अंदर क्या कि मैं सही बात नहीं कह सकता हूँ अपना?
वो नहीं,
तो रहने दीजिए।
आपने पहले मौलिक बात कही, दमदार बात है। हम सब न्यायपालिका की भी इज्जत करते हैं, कार्यपालिका की भी करते हैं, और उम्मीद करते हैं कि न्यायपालिका, कार्यपालिका और विधायिका सशक्त रूप से अपने क्षेत्र में काम करेंगे। पर एक विशेष मामले को लेकर
अगर करे तब तो ठीक है।
नहीं, एक विशेष मामले को लेकर किसी व्यक्ति का नाम लेकर मैं आपसे अनुरोध करूंगा, आग्रह करूंगा।
जुडिशियल अकाउंटेबिलिटी की बिल संसद ने सर्वसम्मत से पारित नहीं किया था,
वो मौलिक मुद्दा है,
तो
उस पर बोलिए।
तो न्यायपालिका ने जनता की इच्छा का, संसद का की परवाह की। जब उनके ऊपर आया तो परवाह नहीं की, औरों के ऊपर चाहे हस्तक्षेप करने लगेंगे। लेकिन मैं कहना ये चाहता हूं कि ये सब व्यक्ति के व्यक्तित्व पर निर्भर करता है। टीएन सेशन के जमाने टीएन सेशन का सब व्यक्तित्व था कि उन्होंने लोगों को बताया कि इलेक्शन कमीशन क्या होता है। लेकिन अब इलेक्शन कमीशन ऐसा है कि सामने लोग टीवी पर देख रहे हैं कि पुलिस वोट नहीं दे रही है, पुलिस लोगों को मार रही है, रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे रहे हैं, लेकिन आंखें बंद किए हुए बैठे हुए हैं। तो अगर इस तरह के आपने देखा होगा, हम हर जगह देखा है सबने। मैं मिला जाके कमीशन से, कमीशन ने आंखें बंद किए रहे। इलेक्शन कमीशन की यही ड्यूटी नहीं होती सर। अभी वोट बढ़ रहा है, वोट कट रहा है, बूथ चेंज हो रहे हैं, आधा मोहल्ला यहाँ लगा है, आधा 3 किलोमीटर दूर लगा है। कुछ नाम ऐसे होते हैं जिनको पहचान लिया जाता है, जाति और धर्म से लाइन खींचते चले जाओ, लाइन खींचते चले जाओ। 50,000 वोट काट दिया, सुनने वाला नहीं कोई मुरादाबाद में, क्योंकि नाम से मुसलमान वोट पहचान लिया जाता है, जिसको चाहे उसको काट दो, कोई रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं। तो अगर इलेक्शन कमीशन में निष्पक्ष लोग नहीं होंगे, अगर वो बात नहीं सुनेंगे किसी की, तो डेमोक्रेसी क्या मतलब रह जाता है? डेमोक्रेसी का अर्थ ही ये है कि लोग अपनी इच्छा से, ईमानदारी से, फ्री और फेयर इलेक्शन के माध्यम से अपने प्रतिनिधियों को चुन सकें, अपने ऊपर शासन करने के लिए सरकार को चुन सकें।
थैंक यू।
लेकिन हो कहाँ रहा है ये? इसलिए मैं शासन से कहना चाहता हूँ, शासन में बैठे हुए लोगों से, कानून तो आप जैसा ला रहे हैं बनेगा ही वैसा।
थैंक यू प्रोफेसर।
आपकी नीयत पे भी लोगों को संदेह है, लेकिन ऐसे लोगों को नॉमिनेट करना इलेक्शन कमीशन में जिनके अपनी अंतरात्मा नाम की कोई चीज हो, जो अन्याय न होने दें, जो सिर्फ आपके इशारे
के लक्ष्मण, डॉक्टर के लक्ष्मण, थैंक यू। मैम, यू हैव बीन हियर।
Thank you, Chairman sir.
I have given him
for giving this
extra
opportunity to speak on this amendment of this.
You have been very kind to everyone.
Appointment of Election Commission.
No, you have been very kind. Everyone has appreciated
Sir, I
it.
stand here.
So your sitting here has been a great challenge to me.
This bill. Bharat supposed to be the largest democratic country in the world and mother of democracy. Sir, this appointment of Election Commissioner, the matter has been brought under the purview of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has made it very clear. A temporary committee constituting Prime Minister, LOP and CJI until a law is enacted in the Parliament. But unfortunately, our friends, colleagues started saying that CJI has been removed from this three-member committee. मैं बधाई देता हूं हमारे लॉ मिनिस्टर को. Apart from Prime Minister, LOP, leader of opposition and a union minister. Subject to correction, LOP, I don't think there is a opposition status even for this present Congress party in the Lok Sabha. In spite of that, our Honorable Minister is liberal enough to include as the largest party's leader also been included in the three-member committee. And sensing that even in future also it may happen. भविष्यवाणी भी जानते हैं हमारे मंत्रिपद इसलिए the leader of the party which has got highest number. So ठीक है आपको भी समय आएगा. So there is no way in violation of the judgment, sir. They should introspect first. It's a purely a meritless criticism against this government on the appointment of these election commissioners. You all should introspect what has happened all these years. What was the methodology adopted in appointing the election commission at national level, even at state level? And how these election commissioners are functioning. I really appreciate one of our colleagues from BJD. If they start now suspicious on even returning officers, this democracy would have not survived. I ask the appointment of the chairperson and staff of the tribunals, national green tribunals. Who is the authority in appointing this? The same central government for the last many decades. And even the National Human Rights Commission, supposed to be the Prime Minister is the chairperson and the ministers concerned. And these people never brought a holistic law for regulating the appointment of CEC and election commissioners. The policy paralysis, though they were in power for more than 6 decades. So when the matter is brought to the Supreme Court, the government has tried its best to make it fulfill. One of the comments made by former Chief Election Commissioner, sir, by name O.P. Rawat, I quote, sir, the issue before the Supreme Court was not who will be on the selection committee. It was why did you, the earlier government, not enact a law as promised or laid down in the Constitution. So you make a law until then our suggested panel will select CEC and ECs. In the Constitution, Parliament is the supreme law-making body and Supreme Court has the power to judicially review the Constitution. So I don't think there is any issue in this. This is the statement given by O.P. Rawat, the formal and Chief Election Commissioner. Sir, people have started and shown much respect and regards towards Supreme Court judgments. I fail to understand what happened when there was a judgment by Supreme Court on Shabanu case. What made the government to bring an ordinance? Was it not a political motive and superseding the Supreme Court judgment? And even then, when Session was a Chief Election Commissioner, he was the man instrumental in bringing electoral reforms, right from implementing strictly the model code of conduct. And the Congress government in 93, they have added 2 more persons to belittle T.N. Seshanji. Mr. Gill and G.V.G. Krishnamurti were being added to just belittle the powers of T.N. Seshanji. And this is the attitude of the then government, Congress government, and they'll speak of democracy and they speak of internal democracy. And even 2009, the Chief Election Commissioner N. Gopalaswamy was recommended the removal of the person called Naveen Chawla. Earlier, our member has told that who is the secretary for former Prime Minister. So, sensing that he is in a partisan attitude, working as a member in the Election Commission, Gopal Swamy recommended for his removal. But unfortunately, the then government rejected the request of this chief election. This is the democracy which they adopted. Sir, apart from this, now our government has brought a 3-member committee apart from Prime Minister, LOP and Union Minister. So, before these so-called members of the opposition parties opposing this bill, they should not only introspect, they should also know what measures have you taken during the ensuration of the constitutional norms of separation of powers. What were they have the methodology followed. More extensive, even the quasi-judicial constitutional bodies like CAG, yes sir, UPSC, NCSC, NCBC, NCST and so on. They never bothered. And in practice, it was the government alone they have decided. So finally,
please conclude.
By supporting this bill, I would like to make some recommendation because the black money which is playing a dominant role in the present day politics, we have been witnessing how hundreds of crores of rupees now, the black money is now coming out. Sir, to eradicate black money from the politics, the government is also
Dr. Ami Yasnik.
And also,
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I get up to speak on this very important bill. But having listened to all the speakers, and especially the Honorable Law Minister, I wish that they'd gone back to 1949 June Constituent Assembly debates and seen the extent of the debate that had taken place on this particular issue of election commission. And the only statement that came out of the whole debate was that election politics, election machinery, and election should be completely out of the hands of the executive. There should be no executive interference, and this should be an independent, autonomous body. Having said that, sir, I come back to the Law Commission report of 2015, where exactly 2 lines were said by the Law Commission in the report, and that was that the Law Commission said that there should not be any breakdown of rule of law. Now, rule of law, which is meant in the democratic setup today, is that there should be strong institutions, a vibrant democracy, and all institutions should be independently working for the people of this country post-independence. Now, coming to the Supreme Court and the Apex Court judgment of 2000, in the matter of 2015, which has been raked up by many. And I've also heard that some of them have said that there have been selective liking to the Honorable Apex Court's judgments and selective not liking of the Honorable Apex Court judgments. Sir, the Honorable Apex Court in a matter of 2015 said that there was a constitutional vacuum because there was no procedure which was shown in a particular bill by Parliament, no law. So there should be the vacuum, that vacuum should be sorted out. And hence this bill has come today, the 2023 which says that the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners bill 2023. So why the necessity for this bill? I would like to make some observations which I have seen in the public domain, that there have been instances where enlightened citizens have written to the Honorable President of our country, pointing out that there seems to be a crisis of credibility with this particular institution. We have seen that there have been instances where intelligent people and intellectuals and academicians have written very strongly that this institution needs a robust mechanism of transparency, a mechanism that is responsible to the people of this country. And hence,